You might have thought that when you're asleep, your mind is always blank, but that is not true. When you're asleep, you often have thoughts going through your mind, and you spend at least 2 hours dreaming each night. But most of the time you don't remember your dreams. It's the exciting science of sleep on this episode of Bronk's Brain! Before I tell you about sleep, I need to tell you about the brain. Here's your brain. Don't worry, it's not your brain. Phew. There are many different parts of the brain, and each part has a different purpose. For example, you use this part when you're thinking in a logical way, like this for instance. And you use this part whenever you're seeing. Of course you use your eyes to see, but a disconnected eyeball wouldn't be able to see on its own. You need this area of your brain in order to realize that you're seeing. Now I can tell you what sleep is. Sleep is when some parts of your brain are turned off, while other parts of your brain are working harder than when you were awake. You might have thought that when you sleep your whole brain turns off, but that's not true. Only some parts of your brain turn off. Now here's an interesting example. Some of the vision area of your brain actually works harder when you're asleep than when you're awake. When you're asleep, you're not seeing, so why would this part of the brain be working so much? The answer is, this brain area is involved in creating your dreams. When you're awake, this brain area causes you to see the real things around you, but when you're asleep, the same brain area most likely is making up the images you see in your mind when you're dreaming. You can shut off the dream sound effect now. Thanks. There are people with brain damage in this part of the brain, and those people don't have dreams. Here's a different example. Let's talk about the brain area you use when thinking in a logical way. This brain area turns off during sleep. This is probably the reason your dreams are often illogical. They don't make sense. People can't fly. Here are the long names of these brain areas, in case you wanted to know. And now it's time for dessert. That's good. Here, have some. You'll like it, come on. Another thing your brain does differently when asleep is your brain purposely stops your muscles from moving. That's why we barely move when we're asleep. Our brains probably evolved to do this so we wouldn't act out our dreams and then bump into things and hurt ourselves. People with certain brain disorders do act out their dreams. Likewise, people sleepwalk if their brains fail to stop their muscle movement. This cat is actually asleep, but because it has a certain type of brain damage, it's able to move around while sleeping. This cat's probably acting out a dream it's having about chasing a mouse. As you know, another main feature of sleep is that you're not aware of what's going on around you. Scientists are trying to figure out what happens in our brains that makes us unaware when sleeping. Now here's something really cool. Using various technologies that measure how hard the brain's working, scientists have discovered that when you sleep, your brain replays the things that you did during the day. It's like an instant replay in sports. Isn't that wild? At least some of the replays become part of your dreams, so while you sleep, you're at least somewhat aware that the replays are happening in your brain. This brings us to the question, why? Why do we sleep? The answer is we sleep so that we can remember what we learned. What you learned during the day gets replayed in your brain while you sleep, and that causes the things you learned to get stored in your long-term memory. Sleep might also make us get better at the things we learned. Get plenty of sleep, because if you don't, what you learned one day might not be there the next. Also, it's better to get more sleep than to stay up late studying for a test. Good thing this kid fell asleep. And don't use caffeine to replace sleep. Caffeine will make you feel less sleepy, but the only way to remember what you learned is by getting enough sleep. Why else do we sleep? Well, we get energy by eating food. When you sleep, you use less energy. We might have evolved to sleep so we could survive on less food. More benefits of sleep is it's when our bodies do a lot of growing, healing, and fighting the germs that get inside us. If you don't get enough sleep, you're more likely to get sick. Why do you get sleepy? One major reason is when you're awake, your brain makes a natural chemical called adenosine, and that chemical makes you sleepy. While you're sleeping, your brain clears out the chemical, so when you wake up, you don't feel sleepy anymore, you feel rested. Now here's what's most important. Get plenty of sleep every night. If you don't get enough sleep, it'll be harder to learn, you might be in a bad mood, and you might get sick more often. The average middle schooler needs a full 10 hours of sleep each night. Have a good night, thanks for watching, and to sum it all up, sleep is when some parts of your brain are turned off while other parts of your brain are working harder than when you were awake. And here's a musical number to review why we sleep. So you'll remember all the things that you learned. You get to eat fewer calories burned. It's when you're growing, healing, and fighting the germs away. Ba 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 ba-de-ya. That is why we slumber. 10 hours is your number. Yes, we gotta slumber, alright.